Hello, everyone, once again, and good to see you, although I can't see you. I'm Marilyn Hawes, and I am doing this show for and with Unprecedented TV. And my show is called Heart and Soul, and you'll find us on YouTube. I'm also CEO of Freedom from Abuse, and we raise awareness of prevention of abuse, really, before it actually happens. So there's far too much of it happening. Domestic abuse, whatever, child abuse, that's what we do with training programs. But for Heart and Soul, I like to have people on that have got interesting stories to tell. Maybe like last week, I had Siobhan White, and that was a really very, very difficult story. But, you know, I like to have people on that have got something that I think is going to be really interesting. Sometimes we have to kick the elephant out of the room, but sometimes it's just interesting. And today I have back on my show Julian King. And he was on before. And where's he gone? He's there. He is there. I know. Hello, Julian. There we are. Now then.
Hello, Marilyn.
Now, Julian is going to tell us about something different. Last time he talked about family law and stuff, but this time is different. He is a former New Scotland Yard detective and founder of Street Safe London, which is what we're going to be talking about today. He is one of my Freedom from Abuse associates. I've known him a long time. He also deals with family law and criminal matters as a paralegal and an investigator. So what I want to talk to now about is what he was up to in London on Saturday. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. Last week, wasn't it? Was that last week, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So can you explain what you were doing down there and what everybody else was doing?
Okay, I think we're there pretty much once a week, and what we do is we deter scammers, pickpockets, opportunist, thieves, and we talk to the tourists, give them some crime prevention advice, and we, prevent them from being scammed, because unfortunately Westminster Bridge at the moment, well, in fact, for decades, has been pretty much lawless, and nobody really has taken responsibility for it. But I think we have made some sort of inroads. We have raised some issues, with the Metropolitan Police, and I can probably, talk about that a little bit later. But I was wondering, perhaps this week, because it's been quite topical, we go back to Henry Novak.
Yeah.
Start off with that case, because I think we will find that there are some similarities, believe it or not, with what we've been doing and what we've been raising with the police in Westminster. So perhaps if we go back to, Henry Novak.
Do you want to start with that, or do you want
Yes. No, let's start with Henry Novak.
I mean, I come from Southampton, and I know exactly where he was murdered. I know that road. I know St Denis Road,
Yes.
Belmont Road. I mean, honestly, talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm just going to throw some things at you, and as with your detective hat on from the New Scotland Yard, because they have come out of this not exactly covered in glory, have they? The police. I mean, what I have read that two locals actually rang 999 and said somebody's been stabbed. We can hear, and where this happened, I mean, it's very close. There's no really any front gardens, so they would have heard it. You're living in that road cheek by jowl, really. So there's that. And then why, if two people did go 999, someone's been stabbed, why wouldn't an ambulance have come out straight away, or a paramedic?
Yes. As you know, I've got a lot of experience with Hampshire Police as well.
Yeah.
And, I was in the past also a detective, within Hampshire, as well as New Scotland Yard. I transferred after sort of 20 years service. So I do know it quite well. And I was actually there last week anyway, in relation to a case in the magistrates' court where we were assisting someone, which was quite an unusual situation. But I think that probably a good story for perhaps another meeting.
Okay.
Let's say, I think another episode, because it's a little bit more involved, but again, there are some sort of connecting factors. But yes, no answer to that. There should have been, an ambulance sent.
Yeah.
Somebody's probably made a mistake. They've probably not either understood what's going on. But if someone says, somebody's been stabbed, you would expect, that control room will automatically
and what is
send an ambulance stroke paramedic.
What is so distressing is I see lots of stuff that comes up on X, yeah, and there was a doctor put a message out on X to say, had a paramedic gone at that stage, they could have, I mean, this sounds gory if anybody's, but they could have like gone into his back and drained, because he had 2 liters of blood in his lungs, and they could have taken that pressure out and got him into surgery quickly. He reckons, this doctor could have been saved, which is just, isn't that awful to know that? I mean, I just cannot believe that the comment of one of the police officers, he would have died anyway. I mean, how outrageous.
I think the initial response by the senior officer wasn't well thought out, and what I find with the police is that they are usually instantly on the defensive, and that's where things start to go wrong, rather than trying to work with the public. In relation to the paramedic, I've no idea whether that would have worked. However, it sounds like he could have done a lot more than a police officer who's just sort of first aid trained. I mean, even our own volunteers for Street Safe London, we carry bleed kits, because now you're considering dealing with a stab wound rather than somebody just being sort of punched in the eye. So and he's
with your police hat on again,
yes,
why would you handcuff someone who's on the floor anyway and can hardly breathe, clearly isn't going to rise up and stab an officer, just passed out, hardly breathing? Why would you handcuff? And then when they find out that the boy has been stabbed, so obviously the story is wrong, why did they not handcuff the guy? I can't remember his name, Vikan Mika, I can't remember his name, whatever, the perpetrator. Why did they not handcuff him? And why, when they got to the police station, was he taken to the canteen to choose a meal?
Okay, I'm not sure he would have been taken to a canteen. Perhaps it's a microwave meal in the custody suite. They usually have a selection of those. But in terms of handcuffing, from what I can see in the video, there's absolutely no reason to handcuff that guy on the floor. He was already apparently propped up against the wall by the suspect's father, who then said he sort of slumped to one side so he can put him back up. I think it is poor training. Again, I've always said, what we see today is a lack of leadership, and a lot of that is down to the way officers are recruited and trained now. Many don't stay very long, so you don't really have that much experience by those officers on the street, so they've got nobody to sort of take a steer from. But in this case, shouldn't have been handcuffed, from what I can see. That comment should have not been made, and I'm also just very pleased that the body worn camera footage was working and they acted quick time, because what we find, and we've had this in Hampshire, where body worn video. Well, let's say Hampshire. It's also other forces. Body worn video is not saved. Might be corrupted.
Yeah.
That can't be found, hasn't been saved because nobody's asked for it to be saved. So things are starting to move forward a little bit on that front now. But in terms of handcuffing, my view is still probably a little bit different from others regarding handcuffing of suspects. I believe in the right situation, people arrested and those that are going to be stopped and searched for weapons and drugs should be handcuffed. Okay. Reason being is we have a lot of single crewed officers now, and also if you've got somebody that's wanted or jittery, you don't handcuff them straight away, you're going to find that you could end up in a big fight with them, and then you end up with 3 or 4 police officers on top of them. 1 or 2 of those officers might sustain injuries, where all that could have been alleviated if those cuffs were just put on. But that also requires education.
Absolutely.
And at schools, children should be told what the police can and can't do, so that they don't start a fuss and start fighting. And
I've got a course, I do that, and the Home Office actually sponsored me for it. It was called Court. Yes. Court. If you were caught because of what you've done and you go to court, what does that process look like from the moment the police rock up and you've done something on the street? What does that look like, And I do all that, and I do actually have a pair of handcuffs, and how you do the ones at the back and the ones at the front stack, and why you wouldn't do the front stack, because somebody can go like this and what have you. I just can't get my head around it at all. And then fast forward. So Southampton people, I'm not a great fan of Hampshire police, I have to say. But Southampton people we are not redneck rebels. So to have, and I'm sure the renter mob came up from somewhere, nowhere, just because they thought they could start kicking off. But Southampton people are generally, they're quite respectful. You don't even have fights after Southampton football games, even if we've lost, it doesn't break out in a fight. But the way, you start bringing out riot shields, doesn't that actually inflame a situation?
It can do, but at the same time, they've also got a responsibility to try and protect property and the public, etc. So there are different ways of doing things, but I can't comment too much on that because I wasn't there. I can only go on what I've seen on the television. I could see there obviously some agitators there, but my own view is that people are starting to get fed up.
Oh, they are. But have you seen the footage of about 3 or 4 coppers? They'd got one of the people on the floor and were kicking him in the head. There's footage of it. Yeah, again, it depends on the level of force, that needs to be used. You shouldn't be doing that, surely.
It really depends, because if you go back and look at the Golders Green case, where the suspect had been tasered and all the rest of it, and he was still fighting, he was being kicked in the head, and then you've got experts saying that that's sort of permissible in those circumstances, you can do that. Yes, believe it or not. But what you do find is that again, because of this lack of I'd say experience, and some forces, we've got an average of 3 to 7 years service, in that force, and so a lot of these will just go over the top. They won't be able to control themselves, which they should be able to do. And again, it's about the supervision. Remember what I was saying about the sergeants and the inspectors? They're not doing their jobs, and some of the reason I think for that is that they are too close to their troops with a lot of this wokeness, you know. I mean, I'm going to refer later on to a superintendent at Charing Cross Police Station, where I was raising issues, and the first sort of email, you know, that she sent back to me, she signed it as Tash, you know, rather than, you know, Superintendent Natasha Evans, you know, or whatever, superintendent. Now, once you start doing that, the discipline starts going. You know?
Absolutely right.
And the sergeants also have got very, very little service and knowledge, because you can do your sergeant's exam pretty much, you know, straight after your probation, you know,
right.
And with 3 years you could be a, you know, a sergeant. So how does that person control somebody that may have 10, 15 years service, you know, who may have come in under, you know, the old system, where now it's like the graduate entry, and they say, well, you know, who are you to tell me that? What life experience have you got? You know, you've come straight in here, you know, to get a university degree. And what we find now is that once people have got these degrees, they then move on. Well, thank you very much. I've been paid to have a degree, and I'll go elsewhere, you know, and try and use my skills there, where really we want to keep them in the police.
Well, I think also, tell me if I'm wrong, that the College of Policing need to certainly review their, because if they are saying, I mean, I read that if someone says racist or racism, and that's what happened, he said, didn't he, this guy, the perpetrator, oh, he was making a racist comment to me, blah, blah, blah. So they immediately jump on that bus. That's what they were saying, that is what you're taught at police college, that you know, you can't have that racism, you go down that route without checking first if it was right. I don't understand it. The world's gone mad.
Well, this also applies to domestic abuse. Yeah, what they say is believe the victim. So they usually assume that the first person that's contacted police, you know, is the victim. Yeah, and sometimes that's not the case.
Yeah.
And again, sort of a bit of a link to the later stuff I'm going to talk about is there's no investigation. You know, it should be the ABC. You know, it's all about, you know, checking things. You know, so you know, you don't believe anyone, you check things, and you do a very brief investigation straight away, you know, and you will get a lot out of that. Because what I'm finding in this other matter that I'm dealing with over in Westminster is that they will take action straight away. They will diddle about a bit. They will arrest someone, and they don't know what's happened before. You know, you know, they're missing witnesses. They may have been able to turn the case around and show, actually, well, the person that I just put handcuffs on is actually the victim in all this. We've taken them away, and the suspects are out there on the loose. And
well,
again,
you got something that you sent me that I know Charlotte's got, and she'll edit it in. And it was absolutely awful. It was a clip. I don't know if this is what you want to talk about as well. Of
yes, later on, yes.
A security guard, bodyguard, acting on false information. And the couple have got this.
Well, no, not security guard. These
right.
were vigilante group.
Oh, were they?
And this is my, I suppose we could call it a beef now. It did start off as us actually, you know, trying to help Westminster Police, you know, and this has been going on for 5 months now, and all we've seen is the situation escalating and no positive action by Charing Cross Police to put people in handcuffs, arrest them, and let them know that you can't be acting this way. You know, there were some very serious assaults, and we reported crimes of violent disorder, and we've seen no action by Charing Cross Police. I've even sent a letter to Mark Rowley, the chief constable, which is an open letter. Absolutely no response. I would imagine it's just been passed on to Charing Cross and delegated to someone who said, you know, how can we avoid doing some work? So
yeah, well, they are lazy.
You usually get laziness, incompetence, and the worst thing is what I call institutional corruption, and that's where you don't have an officer that is prepared to put their head up above the parapet and say, "Oh, actually, this is wrong. It might be because of our, lack of experience or whatever, but hang on, there's some serious offences here. Perhaps we should, approach the CID or, or send something back up the chain saying, no, that they're actually violent disorder offences. Evidence is all captured on video, and we need to nip this in the bud." And
because the photograph of that lady with her I mean, she must have been hospitalised, and she's got her head sort of like rammed against something, hasn't she, with all this red paint on?
But if you actually look at the video clip that attaches that, what I've shown there is a what I'd call a far right unlicensed security bodyguard who's employed by all these content creators, and he enjoys going around and having a scrap, and he pummeled this female so many times in the side, and they're martial artists, so that would have caused some serious damage, probably even cracked ribs. You can see him kicking her, totally out of control. I've passed all the videos and additional information to Charing Cross Police with details of the suspects. Heard nothing back. So, and when things are not happening, because it's quite obvious when one of the vigilantes is quite happy to come up to, our volunteers on the bridge, brazenly, showing that, oh, he's actually still carrying this around, and he's carrying it around.
Paint.
He's carrying it around as an offensive weapon, and the police are not arresting him because he's got a good relationship with them. We've also we even saw a clip. It was pixelated, but they were saying that he provides information to the police. So in other words, police provide information to him. So they'll see a pickpocket out and about or whatever, they'll give him a call so he can go and get some footage and, make some money out of it. Oh, yes. So I've told Charing Cross Police about this, and again, nothing. So I don't think they've heard about covert human intelligence sources, called, CHIS for short. And also the one of the vigilantes even referred to Crimint. Have you spoken to Sergeant so-and-so about Crimint? A Crimint is what I call a criminal intelligence report. So he's saying they're letting him go because he keeps giving them information about, who's the pickpockets and who's the shoplifters and stuff. So this has escalated to a stage where people are being hurt, and somebody is going to either get seriously injured or is going to die. And we don't want a situation in Westminster where at some stage a more senior officer than Superintendent Evans is going to have to go on the television and apologise because they ignored our information, intelligence, evidence for the past 5 months.
I mean, have you? I'll tell you what. Have you ever told GB News?
Marilyn, you probably know with us, we don't really, promote ourselves. We don't usually go on podcasts and things, but sometimes it gets to a stage where you think, you have to raise awareness of these things. Everybody, is sort of doing podcasts now. It's a good way of getting information out. For us, we're usually fairly quiet. We get on with it. We try and help the police initially and say, look, I think you might have missed something here. This is quite serious, and this is what could happen if you don't do that. But what we find is that if you challenge the police, or in fact, even raise awareness of issues, you are turned from being a helpful member of the public into being an enemy. That's how you are seen. I think about the last dozen, emails I've sent to Superintendent Evans and one of her inspectors. They haven't even had the courtesy to acknowledge the emails where we've provided video clips of offences being committed.
That's absolutely
I've asked for what's known as a SPOC. That's a specific point of contact. All we want is one officer that we can give all our information to, that we gather when we're on that bridge, because it's a hive of, unlawful activity, to save us all this hassle, of trying to find somebody that will try and collate all this information and do something with it. So at the moment, we're not that impressed with Charing Cross Police. And my own view is, you probably saw the BBC Panorama programme regarding Charing Cross a little while ago. There was an undercover.
I didn't see it. I missed that.
Okay, there was an undercover expose. They had a detention officer in the custody area who was secretly filming. He'd got the job, secretly filming. That all went viral. I think there's about 9 or so officers that have been disciplined or dismissed. A lot of it was down to sexism, etc., etc. And I think what's happened is then, I think they've parachuted Superintendent Evans into Charing Cross because we do what they do. They will have researched me now, to find out who is this guy, what's he doing on bloody Westminster Bridge, and so they would have done their research. So we just do some very basic research, and we see that Superintendent Evans has she was from Greater Manchester Police, where she was in the specials for 8 years, then joined as a constable and GMP, and then has shot up the ranks in 10 years to chief inspector, and then appears to have transferred on promotion to the Met Police, I think just a couple of years ago. And we think, well, then perhaps they parachuted her in there. And one of the reasons we say that, to deal with the sexism, et cetera, is that in the newspapers, we can see that she declined an invitation to attend a local business meeting of all local businesses there, because it was being held in a sort of a strip joint, Now, the bottom line is that they are her customers, and that is how the police force is paid there, through their taxes. And a lot of these businesses are, unsavory, let's say. You've got casinos, you've got everyone, but if you blank them, when you've only just been appointed there because of some sort of woke ideology, okay, you're making a stand, but at the same time, you're not really working with your customer base, the people that you're supposed to be looking after, and the nighttime economy. So what I found with Superintendent Evans is that I sent her a very detailed report back in December time, with I would say predicting what was likely to happen, and I put have given her information, pictures of various bodyguards, people involved in the vigilante, situation. And when I say vigilantes, these aren't what we call true vigilantes. They're content creators. They make money out of creating situations, and people don't want to see, somebody, being arrested. So a pickpocket. They've been arrested, police come along, take them away, that's that. They want a bit of action, so they chase them through the streets, they spray them with the red spray, they're almost getting run over by cars, and the police are just allowing this to happen. Now, initially, you could forgive some of these people for using this spray in this way, because what the main guy is a Brazilian sort of national. There's another guy appears to come from the States. There's not really any, sort of local people that are doing the vigilante stuff. They're coming in. We even had a content creator come in from the States, as part of this vigilante group, because we're an easy touch. They know the police.
What do they do then? What do they do? Do they put it out on TikTok? Do they?
Oh, everywhere. You name it, TikTok, Instagram. Just to give you an idea, the main guy that we've reported, the guy that came and flashed this at us on the bridge, I think he's up to about £50,000 on a GoFundMe, because people want to see him spraying people. So
no.
if it's a case of listening to the police say, don't use it, and well, sod it, I'm going to use it, and he's actually effectively said that in a video to them, responded, saying that he's going to continue, and they've just let him. What are they scared of? The only thing that I can think of that might be another reason for them not taking any action is because they might be embarrassed, because what you've got here is vigilantes going around spraying people. People are sort of jeering them on. They're getting paid for this. The main guy has been in a lot of the newspapers, like as the pickpocket hero guy, and not one senior officer has stood up and said, well, hang on, guys, you can't be doing this. Yeah, you can detain people if you want, and we'll come and take them away. If you have evidence, reasonable suspicion, they can still do that with their citizens' powers of arrest. But what you don't do is chase them around, beat them up, spray them with spray. So when police come up, what we've seen from the videos that we've seen online, there's probably a lot of stuff that we haven't seen. But as I say, I take people as I find them. We've tried to help the police, and we've just got this sort of head in the sand approach. And what's the best way of dealing with this? We'll just ignore Street Safe London. We'll, just don't respond to them. It got to such a stage that last week, because we reported the matter on the bridge with one of the guys who came on after all these violent disorder incidents, which we reported. And this is where we had the discussion as to why the police weren't arresting him. So we reported that, because again, it's harassment, against our volunteers, really.
Absolutely.
And it got to a stage where they don't speak to you. They only talk to you on email, So I spoke to someone else, and she was actually quite pleasant, in her emails. But it was quite clear she had no clue what she was doing, and she had not linked this with all the other cases, So every time we've raised a matter with the head of that station, Superintendent Evans, she's continued to delegate. I'll pass it to so-and-so, I'll pass it to so-and-so. They don't know what they're doing. And, and then they're trying to effectively cover up, because they're either not recording the crimes formally or they're writing them off. Quite often they say, oh, well, we need a victim. Nobody's willing to make a statement. So that's the end of the matter. But it's not. If they look at the violent disorder aspects, you don't need a victim for that. You've got all the evidence there. It's on video. And of course, if people are being beaten up by paid bodyguards who do this all the time, and they attend all the various rallies, are they going to make a statement against them? I think they're going to be a little bit worried. The police are not providing any sort of support or encouragement. For us, we know what we're doing. We don't mind. We can deal with it. But when it comes down to, members of the public, and yes, most of these people will be pickpockets or shoplifters.
All right, so the guys that are doing that's what I was just going to ask
Yes.
you. The guys that are doing the content creation, basically page thugs, these people have actually, that they're targeting, are known to have pickpocketed or done something. They're not just random people.
No.
That are innocent. Yeah.
Well, that's right, but they also get things wrong.
Yeah.
Because what we have here, if you work in the West End, you will know the shoplifters and the pickpockets because they are there every day, you know, and some are getting picked up by the police. But what they do here is they don't wait for them to commit an offence. You know, they literally spot them and then, you know, spray them, try and chase them out, humiliate them. And, you know, the bottom line is if you don't nip these things in the bud, they escalate.
Of course they do.
As to the situation that I've mentioned and can be seen in the video clip, you know, that I've sent you to include in the video.
That stuff, though, that's common assault. I mean, you can't go around behaving like...
Well, I mean, what happened to the female by the bodyguard was much more than common assault. It was, you could say it was attempted GBH due to the amount of force being used. And also, let's make this thing clear, because some police officers don't even know that, the situation regarding these sprays. Now, these sprays are actually legal. Okay, and I get my domestic abuse victims to carry them in their handbags. Okay, but what they see is it's very good advertising. They put criminal identifier. So if you've got somebody from Brazil that's using that, there's a criminal, there's a spray. You know, it's like crazy. But then, you know, it goes further. It goes to assault where you've got a woman going to the ground and they've used like one guy's used virtually a whole can all in her sprays and in her face. And it comes out at a lot of force. You know, it's got a 4 meter distance. So if you get that, you know, in someone's eye, you know, very close, you could have an injury. But what they're doing when they use this, it's not used as a weapon of self-defense. It's used as an offensive weapon. So the only way, an example of how you would use this, go back to a domestic abuse case or whatever. If somebody's got someone's hands around someone else's throat, they can't get away, they're against the wall, you can spray this in their face and you know, to give you time to get away. Yeah, that's basically the type of use that's sort of acceptable. What's not acceptable is just to spray people. Yeah. Because then it becomes like an offensive weapon if you're intending to injure them, but also you've got common assault, as you said, you've got criminal damage of all the clothing, and you're also carrying an even if you put offensive weapon to one side, there's also another offence of having an article intending it to be used for criminal damage, you know. So the bottom line is, from what I've seen, they've not updated me, and until Westminster Police actually update me on what they're doing, we will continue to raise this. And I think the next person we'll raise this with, as we haven't heard anything from Mark Rowley, is we'll raise it with we'll raise it with Sadiq Khan.
Well, good luck with that one.
The bottom line is he's permitting lawlessness on the streets of London where people are getting injured, and some of this stuff is happening right on Westminster Bridge. You know, we've even had
Khan's offices near there, isn't it?
Yeah, we've even had a special constable beaten up on Westminster Bridge by a gang affiliated to a pickpocket that he was detaining, and he was off duty at the time. You know, it seems as though they just don't care, but I think it's more a case of a lack of leadership. You know,
absolutely, but also
and a lack of really working with the public, and they try and get around it now with all these BIDs, business improvement districts. So I mean, there is actually right in central London a private, I call it private policing, a private police force. Okay, it's a security company, but what they do is actual policing. You know, they wear red clothing. They're very good. They are very good, and without them, Leicester Square and the surrounding area would be. It would just be chaos, you know, at night. They're arresting people, handcuffing them, and when the police don't prosecute, they prosecute themselves. They do private criminal prosecutions, you know,
Wow.
and that's how we're heading, you know.
Good grief! Oh, so when they've arrested them and they've cuffed them, what do they then do with them? Do they take them to the police station?
No, they call the police. The police come along. They decide to arrest them or not. If it's sort of a violent offence, you know, and they've been fighting, no doubt they'll probably be arrested. But if it's something like shoplifting or whatever, they may make a decision. They often do not to arrest. So what will happen is the police will obtain the name and address, confirm that of the suspects, and then the security company will conduct a private criminal prosecution, and that also happens even if they've arrested someone, they've gone to the station, and then they've released them, decided not to proceed. If they think there's enough evidence, you know, they will go with that. So, you know, that's the way things seem to be going. And
no, I'm not being funny, Julian. Robert Peel must be turning in his grave.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm so frustrated. I think with the sergeant I spotted him speak to her on the email, I said, look, regarding the harassment of, you know, us on the bridge, I said, look, pretty much forget it. We're not going to assist you any further with this because we've lost confidence in you, you know, because they would only mess it up. Yeah. You know, and we would spend, you know, the next, you know, year backwards and forwards in and out of court for adjournments, and you know, and you know, the guy might get off because they've not done their job properly. So when you get to a stage where one of these incidents, we sent a video clip to the sergeant, and it's in relation to a colleague of the main pickpocket guy, he's another content creator. And this is where, you know, he sprayed her, chased her through traffic and all the rest of it. And she said, I can see sort of common assault, but there are a lot of other things, you know, that don't really be, you know, weren't considered, you know, public order offences, other things, you know, that were in the mix, or looking at the thing holistically with what's happening in London. And ultimately, they're also wasting a lot of police time. You know, these content creators, and then they're using the police as a cash cow. This is great. We create some fuss. Police turn up. We get a lot of footage with the police, and you know, they're not arresting us. We're spraying people outside Buckingham Palace. You know, so let's just continue. Let's make hay while the sun shines until some leader up there at New Scotland Yard says, oh, perhaps we should do something about this, you know, because we appear to be getting adverse publicity, you know, not thinking about the public.
On tangent at the moment. Do you believe there is two-tier policing?
I think that there is a number of types of policing. A lot of it is, like I said, laziness, incompetence. Plus, you do have a level of two-tier policing, obviously, because of the instructions that are given, and people are not being allowed to think. Yes. They're not being allowed to what used to be known as discretion. That was part of a police officer's role. He had discretion as to what he dealt with, what he didn't deal with, you know, or how he dealt with something. That seems to have gone now, and you know, it is very difficult. I mean, hopefully in the future, you know, we might end up, you know, in a better sort of working relationship, you know, with Westminster Police. I mean, half the bridge is Lambeth Police, and they seem to be quite proactive.
But it is a lottery, though, isn't it? It's an absolute location lottery. As I say, I don't have a lot of faith in Hampshire police, and there's quite a few actually constabularies that, you know, I mean, I mean, do you think there's too many constabularies, that if they reduce the number, that would be better?
I mean, this is always, you know, an argument. For me, I believe in keeping it small. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's because I know.
So initially, when I was, you know, in the Met, when I first joined back in '82, we had, you know, a division that you worked on. You know, so I was like in Hampstead, and you know, E division. It went right into sort of, you know, Camden Town and stuff. Mm-hmm. But you knew in your area, you had your own little control room there, and you knew that if a call came in, the officers would know where it is. You would have backup, and people could actually speak to someone. You know, all the police stations are shut. You could actually come in, talk to a police officer, and say, "Oh, this is a bit complicated." And the police officer, "Okay, wait a minute. I'll just go upstairs and I'll get a detective constable to come down and speak to you in a side room." You know, or if it's a sexual offence, but you knew each other, and now we're going back to this new tenure system, which they did years ago and failed, and they're doing it again now with firearms. You know, kicking people off the firearms unit and then starting them all off again, and all these specialists going back to, you know, regular frontline duties. You know, which in itself they probably need to have more training, because just being a frontline officer, you know, I think it's a specialist role now. You know, because they deal with so much. You know,
think when it goes into the police, it's actually very brave, actually, these days.
Yeah. So we continue doing what we do, but as I say, Westminster Police, if you're watching, we're not going away.
Well, honestly, I really thank you. It's fascinating stuff. Just think, I always wanted to be in the police. My dad wouldn't let me. And I wanted to join the Met. And he said to me, "Oh, you'd never get round to saying mom." Because that's the other thing I was going to say to you. See, I just don't think, when Henry, go back to poor Henry again, when he was on the floor and I've been stabbed, and the copper says, "Oh, I don't think so, mate." Well, he's not your mate. Why can't you say, "I don't think so, sir"? I mean, that whole lack of respect.
Yeah, it's the whole discipline thing. If you look at the uniform standards, well, let's go back to Westminster and the West End. There's no consistency. You know, I've seen people that, you know, look extremely smart, you know, proud of their uniform, and you've got others that just look like SHIT. You know, of no bloody interest. And some of them, you know, you think, well, actually, are they really a police officer, or have they just thrown all this stuff on? You know, and it's the discipline. Yes, you know,
it definitely is the discipline, and it goes back to everything else I say with every industry, with every school, you know, schools, you know. A fish rots from the head down. If the top person is lazy, is a numpty, isn't sort of like, you know, giving out set principles and ethics that we want done, if you're not going to, you know, then the whole thing will crumble. And that's the point, that they're not, you know, they're just, it's useless. I mean, it doesn't give me any faith whatsoever going forward, quite honestly.
No, I mean, a lot of the supervisors, you know, that I've come across, you know, from various rank sergeant, you know, upwards, don't know, you know, how to do things practically, put the law into practice, you know, and deal with it. And what happens is, if they don't know how to deal with it, they'll try and write it off, you know, rather than go and speak to someone and try and find somebody that's experienced. Because, you know, even with me, if I, you know, there's always new legislation coming in, or if I'm not sure about something, you know, I will go make inquiries, and I'll ask anyone, you know. It's quite, you know, interesting. Years ago, we used to have murder squads, you know. And, you know, sort of 5 o'clock, you know, we would all get together and sit round in a room, and the detective superintendent there, and he'd go round everyone, you know, asking if they had any ideas or whatever. And that included like typists, you know, in people that were indexing civilians as well as the, you know, police officers, you know. But now it's difficult to actually get to speak to anybody.
Well, let's think about
person.
We're nearly at the end. Yes. I'm sorry to say, but let's look at this one. Keir Starmer came out with the typical old chestnut yesterday by saying, with Henry and everything, lessons have to be learnt. Really? You're going to turn up to the lesson to learn?
I can tell you, in the last sort of 40 years of doing this in the police and privately, lessons are never learnt.
Of course they're not. They never are. And you've got to turn up for the lesson to learn it, and you've got to have a will to learn. That's the point. And a will. So do you think, wrapping up this chat, do you think, and this is what I hope and pray for, that the passing of Henry, he could well leave a legacy for change, couldn't he? Because I think people are really well and truly fed up. And I think, you know, I saw even in Paris at the Sorbonne, they're going to have tonight a meeting I mean, they kick off all the time, the French, don't they? But they're going to have a meeting in Paris of the young people in Paris are getting together to remember Henry. I think this story has got to be, it's got to be viral. It's got to be all around the world, hasn't it? I know Patrick Christie's on GB News said he's been hearing from all sorts of people around the world. It's a shocking thing to have happened. And I really do hope, Henry, if you're listening up there, that some good will come out of what was so absolutely awful. And Julian, I thank you for your time. I want you on again because of the other thing that you haven't told me about.
Well, I can just give you like
I'm really up to time, honestly.
Okay, well, I'll give you a teaser later on.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you, and we'll get you on again. Thank you ever so much, and for the work you're doing at Westminster Bridge. Look after yourself. Thank you very much,
and see you soon.
See you soon. Well, there's Julian. Goodness me, what brave man. He wanted me to go on Saturday, and I had a family situation and I couldn't go. But my goodness, I don't think I'd want to be. I'd be really frightened of these paid content creators. Oh, it's awful. But then nonetheless, very, very interesting. So thank you, Julian. And this is me saying goodbye for now. From Heart and Soul with Unprecedented TV. And bye-bye from Marilyn. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye now.